residents in the city. They had been shutting off water for years, but nowhere on this scale.
Welcome, 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 beloved community. Welcome back to another installment of the People's Water Board Coalition Water Wednesdays webcast. And today we have a new dear friend, Brian. He's going to be talking with us about the data center struggles that are going on and resistance that's going on in saline and big tech resistance that's actually going on all over the country right now. It's a huge, it's a huge thing that everybody's talking about, everybody's concerned about. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm honored to be here. I'm glad to talk about what's happening, next steps.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an important thing and it's on everybody's mind. It's really interesting. I went to the protest in Lansing the other day and posted pictures and they got shared literally all over. People everywhere are really concerned about what's going on and what the resistance looks like and, ways to learn. And it's a short show, so we're going to jump right in. So grateful that you're here. You're a campaign organizer with First Sierra Club. And you've really been in this struggle with the people and all of those things, and I'm just so grateful that you took the time right before the holidays to kind of talk with us so that people can get plugged in, they can understand what's happening, all of those things. So first, let's talk about the enormous resistance the people in Saline mounted against the massive 1.4 gigawatt data center. Kind of what the resistance was about, how is DTE plugged into this, and why are people so concerned?
Yeah, so I mean, this really started back over the summer when Related Digital, um, the developer with Oracle, in before they got to DTE, right, sued their way through to get township approval. Um, After they were denied a rezoning request. And so people were already, like local residents were already um, kind of upset and feeling like maybe this was a bad faith actor,
Yeah,
meaning Oracle and Related Digital. And so there was something brewing. There's been something brewing for a long time, and or for the majority of the year. And this kind of like the data center concern over the past, year and a half, and really more so over the past, like really since the beginning of 2025, has been
yeah,
kind of slowly elevating, right? And we have been doing our best to share resources with people to get people informed about the risks, the impacts on the electricity grid, on water, on ratepayer impacts, um, as well as other groups as well for the majority of this year. And we had been, myself with Sierra Club, we had been really engaged in trying to get the commission, the Michigan Public Service Commission,
yeah,
which is who regulates decisions made for big utilities like DTE or consumers, which is ultimately who's going to give the power
yeah,
to data centers. And so we were really engaged in trying to make the commission prepare for this big data center um, kind of rapid expansion that we knew was coming by setting stronger rules and restrictions and constraints and better contract terms. And so we had started to do protests and rallies and town hall meetings and
yeah.
in late summer. And
Educating people.
uh,
That it seemed like a really big, like, educational moment that you all were really showing people, like, "Look, this is what could happen," right? And so the people really got fired up.
People were getting fired up, and this is, back in August, September. There was the Michigan
Mhm.
Climate Summit that was hosted by Michigan Climate Action Network in Lansing as well. Um, and people were getting fired up. They were understanding that this was the scale of this concern. And we had a protest. Sierra Club had a protest at the MPSC and with our partners as well. as part of the Guiding Constellations sort of coalition of environmental justice partners, we put on a protest calling for stricter rules and regulations for data center growth, data center expansion, and that was at this prior hearing on October 27th. That kind of got really into the news. It started shifting the narrative to around transparency, around water
Right.
concerns, and kind of it's kind of starting like the wick being lit for this dynamite
Right.
was lit shortly after that. And so at that point, that was had gotten out in the news. Saline organizers, community members that were engaged in the zoning fight, reached out to me, looking for some kind of collaboration, some kind of like, we saw what you did with this protest at the Michigan Public Service Commission. Is there some way that we could connect? And so we started getting into conversation, and the conversation that really turned into a lot of the set the seeds as other seeds are being planted in
Right.
parallel to this, for what was this unprecedented resistance to the
Yeah.
Saline data center that shifted and changed the game and won in so many ways. I know that we are in this moment where it feels like we're not getting everything that we want. But we have won and and really got to this a kind of unprecedented victory on many different fronts that we should be clear about, right?
Yeah.
And so we had an amazing turnout for our Celine protest. We changed the public narrative to no secret deals. This forced politicians and including Gretchen Whitmer, including many state legislators, to come out and give their stance on transparency. Right,
Yeah.
this uplifted the scrutiny around data centers, and made this a politically costly issue to try to sell out
Yeah.
Michiganders to big tech. And all eyes, right, were on this decision for approval or denial of the fast tracked approval of this lean data center.
Yeah, I mean, the
Um,
resistance in and of itself was, just the way that that it became such a and it went viral, literally all over the country. People were talking about Saline, Michigan, right? So the
mhm.
resistance in and of itself was a huge, like a huge big deal and a huge win. It just that part.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're because also what we're seeing is people are feeling like they can get organized. You've got literally hundreds of new community members thinking, you know what, I'm going to be an organizer now,
That's
right?
right.
I'm going to get my local community together, and we're going to fight for against this, because people can
Right.
feel it in their bones that something is wrong here. They can
Yeah.
feel when people see non-disclosure agreements, big redacted contracts, um, lawsuits for where big tech are using their billions of dollars
That's not
as
transparency.
to force
Mm,
themselves into communities. They're thinking, okay, maybe development is good in some way, but there's something really off about this. And so
yeah,
people are kind of like intuitively banding together to get things to be delayed, to slow them down, to make them more transparent, to stop any loopholes that big tech might be trying to take advantage of in our
sure.
communities, and to make sure that all the risks are um, uh, assessed.
Right. Right. I mean, I was so impressed about the organizing going on, and I mean, and they really hit the ground running. They protested in front of. I went and photographed it and reported on the protest in front of DTE headquarters in downtown Detroit, where the folks
Hmm.
from Saline showed up. It was it was freezing cold, and these folks showed up downtown Detroit like DTE, no backroom deals, right? No
Hmm.
secret deals. We don't want this to happen. And then when I showed up in Lansing last week and saw the resistance there, a lot of those folks were from Saline. They were talking to the press like, "Hey, we're here. We are in these streets saying we don't want this. This is not okay. It's not okay to do it to our community. We love our community. We appreciate our water and our aquifers. We appreciate clean air and these things, and we're going to protect it." It was really something to see. So what does the MPSC, Michigan Public Service Commission decision to approve DTE's energy contract mean? Like how does the energy contract and DTE fit into this?
Sure. Um, I wanted to take one step back just because you mentioned the DTE protest,
Hmm.
and then I'll get right into that. At the DTE protest outside of DTE headquarters, there was this amazing moment where all of us like enlivened or like protesters were walking through the park next to DTE and looking through into their conference room actually, and we were shouting, big tech tyranny ends with us. We were saying, what do we do when our water's on the line? Stand up, fight back. And we were saying, no secret deals, no secret deals, right? And we were doing this into the their conference room. I mean, through the window in the park. And they just looked so frazzled, right? And
Yeah.
there's just this moment of like people power versus, and they were talking, they were in some conference, some meeting with a face on the big screen, and in my dreams, I think, I imagine this was Related Digital, the company behind the Selene data center, seeing all of the people on the ground, right?
Yeah. Would
Just
have loved to
here
been a fly on the
demanding
wall in that room at that moment.
what,
I would
yeah,
have loved,
right.
yeah,
And
like, be a fly on the wall in that room at that moment, just,
a-
yeah.
absolutely. And they shut the blinds on us, and we stayed there for a few more minutes, and then we kind of peacefully got our way out of there. But we made the message loud and clear. And then yeah, the hundreds of people that showed up from across the state, that what we're seeing this wave that
Yeah,
is coming together. And the premise there was like, okay, we've done everything that we can to make dissent possible, right? And
that's
what do I
right.
mean by dissent? I mean, we've made it possible for the first time in history, it seems like, for billions of dollars of industrial pressure and a political establishment that's trying to push through data centers at all
It
costs.
is.
With Gretchen Whitmer's agenda to push through, data centers for economic growth, but, at a pace that people are really concerned about. We made it possible through shifting the narrative in the media, through shifting the political costs, right? And through framing, right, things in a very careful way that all the community organizers were really, really highly effective at. That's one of the things about this resistance is
On
that
point with the
people had
messaging, right.
there has been a literacy to the protesting, that it's not just, vague environmentalism or, we don't want our bills to go up. People have had very specific dialed in talking points that they've learned from financial experts, from environmental experts, from public health experts, all across the board. And so this resistance is highly synchronized because people are waking up to the need to
And they're educated.
participate in this public
Yeah.
discourse.
Yeah, folks like
Yeah.
the Sierra Club and other folks and other organizations, they educated folks, so they did have you're right, their talking points are right on point, and the press
Yeah.
picked them up immediately, and
Hmm.
and they love to talk to them about that, and that's important when you're pushing a narrative, it's important that everybody's on point, that everybody's,
Right.
and the narrative is we don't want this at all. We want to protect our water. We want to protect our fresh air, all of these things. We want to protect our farmland. All of these things, people were very on point, and that
Yeah.
matters.
It does matter. And I think it's important also to say that I think what we've been on point about is that we're not, and the communities that are involved in this, no one is against progress or development. We want real progress that's actually going to benefit Michigan long term and our communities long term. We
Yeah.
want we want responsible growth and development and progress. We don't want boom and bust.
No.
We don't want, and we're not ready to risk um, our water, our electricity grid, um, our energy grid, our energy grid and our precious land on a speculative market driven, expansion, right? So this isn't just no data centers. It's no secret deals. It's no loopholes.
Yeah.
It's, no fast tracking. And part of the premise behind this is really important. Part of the premises behind this is that it becomes really clear when you do the analysis around water and the electricity, and ratepayer impacts, that if we close all the loopholes and require deep and true transparency, that is actually the best chance that we have at delaying and slowing down this data center hysteria that is putting us all at risk.
Yeah.
And slowing down and delaying really means right sizing and downsizing the expansion. So, it's not just we don't want any data centers anywhere, because there are some data centers that are just, small data centers that have already existed that we run the internet off of, right? But
Sure.
what we're dealing with now is a completely unprecedented,
Massive.
completely different order of
Yeah.
magnitude level of onslaught that's putting us all at risk. And so we've been really clear to differentiate between that. And so when people say like no data centers, what we really mean is like no massive AI data center expansion, and I think that context becomes pretty clear. But at this Lansing and at the other protests, right? All eyes were on this decision that happened on December 18th.
The
And
MPSC.
the idea was, if they approve it, if they deny the secret deal, then we are going to lift the commission up as heroes because we made this dissent possible. We made it possible for the commission to go against all of this pressure,
Yeah.
right? Or if they approve it, then the trust has been broken.
Yeah.
And this is going to be the starting point to a wave that reshapes politics, legislation, and regulation going forward.
That's right.
And so there's this really important moment, right? And what we heard on Thursday was kind of actually middle of the road. And so it wasn't a full-on approval of the contract as is. They
Yeah.
didn't just rubber stamp DTE's request for ex parte. It's important to say that because we won that. We won this middle of the road that's going to lead to the next strategy, the next part of this fight. And
Right.
so we got to be clear about what we've won. So we'll talk about that in a second. But we also did not get a rejection
Exactly
of
what you
the
want.
ex parte. We didn't get this immediate contested case that
Yeah.
would allow us to do the proper planning and put the right constraints in right now.
Okay.
What we got was a long list of conditions that was now sent back to DTE, and DTE now has a month from the 18th to either accept that long list of conditions. If they don't want to accept that long list of conditions, this becomes a contested case. They
Yeah.
forfeit their right to ex parte, or not their right, but they forfeit their conditional approval. And so it's important to say that we may have won. There's a chance. I don't know how big that chance is, but there's a chance that we actually completely won and got our contested case because we got conditions that were pretty strong, that were strong enough to get DTE to reject that. Now, we don't know what that decision is going to be. Maybe they're going to accept it. But what that decision means is that one, there's a clause in there now that any remaining liability that isn't covered by Green Chili Ventures or related goes to DTE Electric and their shareholders. What that means, so that we had this really big concern, right? Where
It's going to raise rates.
what happens if the data center doesn't end up being profitable to use long term? What if the market shifts? What if ChatGPT never figures out how to create a profit and they can't pay for the hundreds of millions of dollars of grid upgrades that they had us built, preemptively to do this? And that's a real concern. And so one of the biggest wins that we got from this is that the commission put in place this liability extension. So if Green Chili Ventures closes up shop, they're an LLC, a limited liability corporation, where that limit ends, DT Electric has to pick that up.
So it
And
won't fall on
so
ratepayers.
so it won't fall. So at least there's at least some assurance that there's limitations to what can fall on ratepayers.
Okay.
And so DT has to weigh that risk now. The other really big concern that we had was that if they approved the ex parte, meaning like the secret fast track deal, this would set a precedent for secret fast track deals in the future, because we know there are 3 to 4 more gigawatts that are right around the corner that we're going to have to, do a similar types of fights for
Yeah.
or against. And so we were concerned that if they approved this, that there would be a precedent set and they would get ex parte in all of them. But one of the conditions that we won because of all of our organizing and all of the people doing this outreach is that if DTE accepts this contract, this order, if they get this fast track deal, they will have to do within 90 days a file for a contested case to set more clear, transparent
Yeah.
rules, regulations, cost sharing responsibilities for all these future data centers. So
So it'll help
these are
everyone.
some pretty big conditions
Yeah.
that are there. It did, but one of the big things that what we didn't weren't able to do because we didn't get this contested case right now is we are not able to plan around our clean energy laws. Um, and we're not able to look at exactly how where the generation is going to come from and make sure that we are on track to hit our climate targets.
Yeah.
This question has been kind of pushed down the road through
Which is
to
unfair
their
because climate change isn't getting pushed down the road.
it's not getting right. It's not getting pushed down the road, and this is why we
It's
needed
here
it to
right
be
now.
stopped, and we
Yeah,
needed to do this planning right now, and not just be like, all right, let's get started building. You get get the
yeah,
construction going, get the bulldozer on site, and we'll do the climate planning down the road. Really, that's what's not acceptable about all of this,
yeah.
is that it still allows things to get moving before we've done all this risk assessment, but it does put DT Electric on the hook more, and it does make it so that they're going to have to accept, contested cases for rules going forward. And there's other protections that have been put in place. And so these are kind of unprecedented wins.
And
There's
they
not
would
really
not
other
those things
commissions.
would not have happened had the people not resisted, and resisted in
Absolutely
a mass
not.
way and very intentionally about and they were very intentional about what they wanted, right, and what they
Yeah. And
expected. So,
absolutely. And the things that we've won here, it's very rare across the country to
it
see
is.
any commission, set rules that are, this, this kind of proactive, right?
Yeah,
And this is a testament to what we've done. They didn't go all the way, and there's a question about, do we need to push them even right now to
yeah.
go all the way? And there is this question of whether the attorney general or environmental groups are going to appeal the decision for ex parte and basically challenge that in court and force a contested case. And we don't know where that's going to go. But there is that question of whether environmental groups um and the attorney general are going to appeal that. And if because
Yeah,
if we were to appeal that together, then that would slow things down. And
sure.
if the appeal was successful, that would grant the contested case, and this process would be um pushed down the road, and might be a little bit spooky to investors. We've seen that Oracle investors are already getting spooked by the amount of resistance that we have been pushing back, right? They've had funders that are being like, I don't know, no, we don't know if we want to be involved anymore. And so
Yeah.
they're it's put what we've done is we've put, their funding at risk to some degree. At least that's what it seems like.
Well, and that's how
And
those people think, right? Like, they think with their pockets, they think with their shareholders, they're thinking about their money and their profits, and so that's big. That's huge. Here
mhm,
at the People's Water Board Coalition, we organize around affordable water every, that's our main goal is getting affordable water to folks. That's
mhm,
what we do. And anytime we see corporations and big projects like this that use huge amounts of water, when people in those areas where these things are happening can't afford their water, and they're getting their water for free essentially, or over, they get a permit or something. We see this with the fight against Nestle and stuff, and this is no different. Data centers, we the people who live in Saline struggle with paying for their water. The people who live all throughout Michigan struggle with paying for their water. And then when these big like projects come and they're able to use as much water as they want, it's contaminated and things. That becomes like an overall full circle issue. So that's kind of how in my thinking why we got involved in it so deeply, because we really thought this is just so unfair that the folks that are in these small towns can't afford their water, but these data centers are able to use as much as they want and contaminate it and let it evaporate into the air and all of these other things. And so this, all the way around, this is bad for folks. It contaminates the land, so many things, and people know that. And like organizations have done a wonderful job at this education to where people know that this is bad. And the other thing that I love about this, the data center struggle, is that it didn't matter. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on or what political ideology or thoughts that you have. You know that you need fresh air, that you know that you need to protect your aquifers. It kind of brought people together in a way that is fairly unprecedented. Like we don't see it in movements very often, and that's been really refreshing, and I really love that about this, you know. Um, how can folks get involved and not just stand with the people in saline, but stand up against big tech? How can folks like really sink their teeth into this because everybody's concerned about it?
Yeah, so this is going to keep going. This is going to go forward, obviously, and there's going to be more fights to come.
Mhm.
One of the really big places, big opportunities right now that we have, and also pressing windows of influence that we have, is that um, both DTE and consumers are two major utilities that are collectively, potentially building up to 20 gigawatts, meaning like triple, almost triple our average
That's crazy.
statewide electricity load.
Yeah.
Number one,
I was
right?
like,
That's why people,
holy cow.
right? It's like over the next decade, for why? So we can run AI, but we've got AI right now.
Yeah.
Like we've got the internet. We've got
Yeah.
like, right,
What's the
we're
end
gonna
game?
triple our
Mhm.
electricity generation or electricity load and generation potentially over the next decade. That's why we're seeing it unprecedented political unity behind this is
Yeah.
because it's like, who's going to benefit? Well, we know that there's trillions of dollars investment going into AI and data centers, and those investors are going to want trillions of dollars in
Yeah.
returns. Most of these investors are not Michiganders, right? A lot of
Nope.
these investors are like BlackRock,
Mhm.
right? Or Blackstone and Vanguard and private
Horrible,
equity,
horrible
foreign
players at the
international firms
at the
that are
table. Horrible players at the table.
that we see like that what they places that have done things to like Toy Story, right? Or Toy Story, what is it? Toys R Us, right? Like
Mhm.
where they come in and they extract like parasites and they leave a corpse. We don't. Nobody wants that to happen to our whole like energy economy.
I mean,
But
that's the thing,
that's one
right?
of
These
the
data
concerns.
centers
And
at
so
some point in time are gonna become obsolete. These huge, like, just like any other technology, and then people are left with these rotting buildings that aren't doing their thing. I've
well, in a way, oversized electricity grid, right? We don't
Yeah,
need a bunch of new gas plants, right? That and
no,
when we build renewable energy, we want that renewable energy to replace coal plants. We don't want a renewable energy coming online just in addition to coal plants. That's
no,
not the idea. The idea is
or
that
the nuclear
renewable and clean
energy
energy is
plants.
going to
No,
get rid of the need to do fracking and get rid of the need to do coal mining and get rid
yeah,
of the water and the mercury and the nitrous oxide and the all of the
right,
terrible the sulfur dioxide, as I meant to say,
yeah,
that comes from those really bad energy generation. We're not trying to build renewable just so we can feed into a you know unlimited energy burning for AI to then take our jobs. Like people are getting this right.
right.
It's like there's not really a good endpoint to justify
No, there's not.
tripling or doubling our whole nationwide and statewide energy grid. And people get the idea that like, okay, if we're going to build enough energy for millions and millions of homes and just burn it through processors. Uh, yeah, that's why we have this political unity. And so
Yeah,
that's why people are getting involved. And how do we get involved? So so both DTE and consumers are doing they have to basically do these 20-year long plans where they're going to plan for generation.
yeah,
They're going to plan like, are they going to build more gas plants? How much renewable are they going to build? Who's maybe going to pay or be on the hook for paying for some of this.
yeah,
And so, um, and there's going to be more opportunities at the Michigan Public Service Commission and at DTE stakeholder meetings where we can show up and make our
yeah,
voices heard and continue to shape this narrative and continue to push for safeguards that are the best in the country. But we want safeguards that are strong enough, not just to green light the rapid expansion. We know that if safeguards are strong enough and if we close off the loopholes and the exemptions that data centers are getting,
yeah,
um, the special treatment, basically, that they're not going to be building them at this crazy pace, right?
yeah,
So we're not just like, let's put in safeguards so then we can have big tech come in and build 20 gigawatts
yeah,
of data centers. We know that there's not a good way in Michigan to build 20 gigawatts of data centers and not have severe consequences for water,
yeah,
not have severe consequences for climate and for health and for reliability for other customers. We know
yeah,
that that's not actually possible. So the strategy remains continuing no secret deals, but also starting this no loopholes for data centers,
Yeah.
no special treatments and loopholes for data centers. There are folks that are looking legislatively at how to roll back tax exemptions.
Yeah.
There is another opportunity that we have that people, if you want to get involved immediately, the Michigan Strategic Fund. They are the board that determines which data centers get the tax exemptions. Do you want tax subsidies going to data centers? If you want that to be limited, um, and you want to have a voice there, reaching out to the Michigan Strategic Fund, going to their meetings, MSF or Michigan Strategic Fund, and demanding that they tighten their definition and their requirements for who
Yeah.
gets the tax exemptions. Because right now, the way that they have written it is overly broad, potentially illegal, because it potentially doesn't isn't strong enough to the intent that the legislation was written, which
Yeah.
was basically that data centers had to be built with clean energy. And right now, any data center can get the tax exemption as long as they are within the DTE or
Yeah.
consumer's territory. And we need them to tighten that up. So one immediate thing that you can do is get your voice out to the Michigan Strategic Fund, and call on that. But going forward, we need essentially no loopholes, right? So
Yeah.
um, we need to ensure and make sure that politicians speak on this, that it is not acceptable for data centers to derail our climate targets. This seems like common sense, right?
Right.
Uh, However, there are loopholes in place that this industry and the utilities likely
Need to
have their
figure.
eyes on. All signs point to
Sure.
them trying to position themselves, right, to get rolling 2-year exemptions from being on track to hit our climate targets, right? And so if the load comes on fast enough, if they can attract enough data centers here, this can potentially get them exempt from having to follow the rules.
Yeah.
And we need to basically demand that we all reject this
Absolutely.
idea and this legal loophole, potentially illegal loophole, that they should be able that utilities like DTE should just be able to forget about the rules as long as they can attract enough data centers to come here. Everybody knows that that is ridiculous, right?
That's
But
ridiculous.
there is a kind of loophole here that they're likely going to try to exploit going forward. And that's, I think, our biggest opportunity to stop this. Because if they don't get to be, here's the thing: if they can't get a loophole from our climate law probably stops them from being able to build nearly as many data centers,
Yeah.
right? So whether you like clean energy, I know there are folks in this movement that like have mixed feelings about renewable energy.
Yeah.
But uh, the clean energy and Michigan Healthy Climate Plan is really our biggest tool
Yeah.
for not only ensuring that energy gets built in a responsible way, but also so that um, our big tech and corporations can't outpace, right,
That's
our energy grid in a way that makes us build a bunch of new generation. And so we need to close off these loopholes, and demand that our kind of politicians and our leaders speak out against loopholes and new fossil gas plants and fossil off ramp derailing our climate plan for data centers.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just at this point in time, this is and the resistance is already there. There's so many ways for people to plug in and and they're not going to stop organizing now, right? Because they know that they have to get this across the finish line, that they've got to get the MPSC and DTE to do the right thing. So this is, the movement itself has been so inspiring to me and to so many people. And it can't when it grows like this, we can't see anything but goodness from it, right? From people actually, organizing like this. It always turns out good.
Hmm.
So, I really want to thank you for coming on the show today to kind of have this conversation with me and talk this through so that people can understand how they can plug in, exactly what happened, all of the things. It's really important show, and we're going to share it all over the place so that folks can plug in. And there's going to be some links and things for our viewers. There's going to be some links and things in the description box down below so they can go and check out all of these things. I actually think that I have some great photos of you, Brian, from the DTE protest. So
Oh, nice.
I'm gonna connect some of those to the show too. But thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate your work in this, and we're all in this together. So we've got to protect our water, we've got to protect our land, and we've got to stand up to big tech. So, and certainly to DTE. So thanks for being on the show. To our viewers, things are, times are really, really hard. We've got to look out for each other, and we've got to try to stay afloat together. Thank you. Bye.